The first time Ethan saw her, she was standing behind a golden gate, staring into the world like someone trapped in a dream she couldn't leave. But what froze him wasn't her beauty. It was her silence. Even when her father's bodyguards yelled, even when cars roared by, even when the wind blew her hair across her face, she didn't flinch. She didn't move. She didn't speak. She just stood there, like a statue with a broken heart. No one told Ethan who she was. He didn't need to ask. Everyone in the city knew the name Lila Hartman, the billionaire's daughter who hadn't spoken a single word since the day she was born. Doctors called it a psychological block. Her father called it his greatest punishment. But Ethan called it loneliness. He saw it. The same kind he felt every day, sleeping under the bridge with a thin blanket and an empty stomach. Ethan was 16, hungry, and tired of being invisible. Every morning, he'd walk past the giant Hartman mansion hoping the guards would throw away food. Sometimes they did, most times they didn't. But that day was different. That day, Lila looked at him. For the first time, her eyes followed someone. Him. She didn't blink, didn't smile, just watched. And for some reason, Ethan couldn't look away. He wanted to wave. He wanted to say hi. But how do you greet someone who's known for silence? Before he could decide, a deep voice shattered the air. "Hey, you again? Get lost. Hey friends, thank you so much for stopping by. Don't forget to comment where you are watching from. Someone close to you might be watching too. Like, share, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a story. Make sure to watch till the very end, because the final twist is something you definitely don't want to miss. So let's continue." The mansion guard stomped toward him, his boots hitting the marble ground hard. Ethan jumped back, clutching his torn backpack. "I wasn't doing anything." "Go beg somewhere else, kid. This isn't your playground." Ethan backed off, but not before glancing one last time through the bars. Lila was still there, her hand now slightly raised, like she wanted to stop the guard, but didn't know how. Then, she was gone. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He stared at the cracked ceiling of the old train tunnel he called home. Rainwater dripped down, soaking his shoes. He pulled the blanket tighter and whispered to himself, "She saw me?" It sounded silly, but it meant something. Nobody saw him anymore. Not since his mum died and his father disappeared. He was just another face people crossed the street to avoid. But that girl, that quiet, broken girl, she saw him. And that was enough to pull him back to the mansion the next morning. This time he brought something, an old harmonica he'd found in a trash bin 2 weeks earlier. It was rusted, missing a few notes, but it still sang if you breathed gently into it. Ethan leaned against the far wall of the mansion gate and started to play. Soft, slow, almost like a lullaby. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And in the heart of a world filled with noise, real things stand out. Minutes passed, then footsteps. He stopped. Through the bars, he saw her again. Lila, barefoot this time, wearing a long white dress that brushed the ground. Her hair was loose, glowing under the morning sun. She was listening. Ethan smiled nervously. "Hey, you like that?" No answer, of course, but she tilted her head, curious, almost childlike. Encouraged, he played again, this time longer, smoother. The melody floated across the courtyard like something old and sad and beautiful. And when he stopped, she was still standing there. Then something unbelievable happened. She smiled, just a little. But it was there, the tiniest, purest smile. From that day, Ethan came every morning. Sometimes he played, sometimes he just talked, telling her about the city, about the stars, about how pancakes tasted better when stolen from a diner kitchen. Lila never replied, never waved, never spoke. But she listened, with her whole soul. The mansion guards grew tired of chasing him away. After a while, they didn't bother. Maybe they saw what no one else did, that this ragged boy somehow brought light to the silent girl inside. One morning, Ethan found a small paper under the gate. It said in neat handwriting, "What's your name?" He stared at it, shocked. She could write. Of course she could. But she'd never reached out before. He smiled and wrote back on a napkin, sliding it under the gate. "Ethan." Later that day, another note appeared. "I like your music." His heart thumped. For someone like him, words were treasures, and hers felt like gold. As weeks passed, their silent friendship grew. Ethan told her everything. How he lost his mom to sickness. How his dad left after promising to come back. How he learned to sleep with one eye open so rats wouldn't steal his food. And sometimes when he talked about the pain, she would close her eyes, as if she could feel every wound he described. One evening, the sky turned red with sunset as Ethan finished another song. He looked through the bars. "Hey," he whispered, "you ever wish you could just run away?" Lila blinked, then slowly nodded. Ethan smiled sadly. "Me too." He didn't know that behind the mansion's walls her father stood by the window watching the two of them. His face was unreadable, but his jaw was tight. The next morning, Ethan arrived to find the gates locked tighter than ever, and no sign of Lila. He waited for hours. Nothing. The next day, still nothing. By the third day, panic grew in his chest. He started playing the harmonica again, louder, faster, desperate. His breath shook, his fingers trembled. "Come on, Lila," he whispered. "Please." Then, footsteps, but not hers. The guard approached, holding an envelope. He tossed it at Ethan's feet. "From Mr. Hartman," he said coldly. "Don't come back." The gate slammed shut. Inside the envelope was a small note, written in the same neat handwriting. "Goodbye, Ethan." His throat tightened. He sank to his knees, the harmonica slipping from his hand, landing softly on the pavement. He didn't cry, but something in him broke, and just when he thought it was all over, he heard it, faint, trembling, coming from behind the gate. A voice, a girl's voice, whispering his name. Ethan." He froze. It couldn't be, but it was. Lila Hartman, the girl who had never spoken in 16 years, just said his name. Ethan froze where he stood. For a second, he thought his mind was playing tricks. Maybe it was the wind, maybe his hunger, maybe the sound of his heartbeat echoing too loud. But then it came again, soft, trembling, real. Ethan. The sound of his name broke through the air like a miracle wrapped in a whisper. His eyes widened. He dropped the envelope, pressing his face against the gate. "Lila? Was that you?" Silence. Then a small rustle, and she appeared, barefoot again. Hair messy, eyes wide with fear and wonder. Her lips trembled. She pressed her hand against the bars and whispered, barely audible, "Ethan." That was all she said, but it was enough to stop the world. Inside the mansion, alarms rang out. The nurse who'd been watching her screamed, "She spoke! She spoke!" The butler dropped his tray. The cook ran to call her father. Mr. Hartman burst into the courtyard seconds later, disbelief written all over his face. His suit was still perfect, but his heart wasn't. "Lila, what did you say?" he demanded, voice shaking. She flinched. Tears filled her eyes. "Lila, answer me," he shouted, stepping closer. "Say it again." But she didn't. She turned her head toward the gate, toward the boy still standing outside in shock. And the billionaire saw him. The ragged clothes, the dirt-stained hands, the harmonica on the ground. His face hardened instantly. "Who are you?" Mr. Hartman barked. Ethan opened his mouth, but no words came. The guards rushed forward, shoving him back. "Sir, he's a street boy. He's been hanging around for weeks." Mr. Hartman's voice dropped low and cold. "Get him out of here and make sure he never comes near my daughter again." "Wait!" Lila cried, her voice breaking for the first time in her life. Everyone froze. Her father turned, eyes wide. "What did you just—" But she was already running, past the fountain, across the garden, straight to the gate. She grabbed the bars, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Please, don't hurt him." Ethan's heart pounded. The sound of her voice, broken, fragile, real, hit him like a wave. He reached through the bars, fingers brushing hers for just a second before a guard shoved him away. "Lila!" he shouted. "It's okay!" She shook her head desperately. "No! Don't go!" But the guards dragged him down the street, his feet scraping the pavement, his harmonica bouncing away into the gutter. Her scream echoed through the mansion walls. It was the first time she'd ever spoken, and the first time she'd ever begged for something. That night, the whole city buzzed with the news. Billionaire's mute daughter speaks for the first time in 16 years. Every news station wanted the story. Cameras lined up outside the Hartman gate. But inside, the mansion was quiet. Lila refused to eat, refused to smile. She just sat by the window, tracing Ethan's name on the glass. Her father paced the room. "Who is that boy, Lila? What does he have to do with this?" No answer. He slammed his hand on the table. "I gave you everything, every doctor, every therapist, every hope, and you never said a word. And now you speak. Because of him?" Her lips quivered. She picked up a pen, wrote 2 words on a piece of paper and held it out. He listened. That was it. Mr. Hartman stared at the words. His jaw tightened. He turned away, voice low. "You don't understand. People like him. They'll use you, hurt you. You're too kind to see it." Lila stood, anger burning behind her tears. She wrote again. "You're wrong." Meanwhile, miles away, Ethan sat beneath the same bridge where he'd slept for months. His body ached, but his mind wouldn't rest. He could still hear her voice in his head, soft, shaky, saying his name like it mattered. He clutched his harmonica, dented from being kicked aside. "She spoke," he whispered to himself. She really spoke. Then his voice broke, and he covered his face. Why did they have to take her away? He didn't know that. Back at the mansion, Lila was thinking the exact same thing. Days passed. The news cycle moved on, but Lila didn't. Every morning she went to the gate. Every night she left a note hidden under a loose stone, messages like, "Are you okay? I miss your music. Please come back." But no one came. Until one stormy evening when she heard something faint, a tune drifting through the rain, the same sad melody he used to play. She ran outside barefoot, lightning flashing overhead, and there he was, soaked, shivering, standing across the street. He looked thinner, weaker, but his eyes were the same. "Ethan," she breathed. He smiled weakly. "Hey, rich girl." She almost laughed through her tears. He held up the harmonica. "Couldn't stay away. I had to make sure you were okay." Before she could answer, her father's car screeched around the corner. "Lila," he shouted from the window, "get inside." She froze. Ethan looked down, jaw tight. "Guess I'm trouble, huh?" She shook her head fiercely. Mr. Hartman stepped out, umbrella snapping open. His voice was thunder itself. "I told you to stay away from her." Ethan didn't move. "Sir, I didn't come to cause problems. I don't care," Hartman snapped. "You're nothing but a street rat trying to touch what you'll never have," Lila gasped. "Dad, get in the car, Lila." "No," she cried. For a moment, everyone froze. The rain fell harder. Lightning flashed again. Mr. Hartman's eyes softened slightly, seeing his daughter's tears. "Please," he whispered. "You don't understand." But she stepped forward instead, toward Ethan. Her hand reached out again, trembling. "You help me speak," she said softly. "Don't go." Mr. Hartman's voice broke. "Lila, he's not your friend." She turned to him, her voice suddenly stronger than it had ever been. "He's the only one who ever listened." Mr. Hartman looked between them, torn between pride and fear. Then he said something that froze Ethan's blood. "Do you even know who he is, Lila? Do you know what his father did?" Lila frowned. "What do you mean?" Mr. Hartman's eyes darkened. "His father worked for me years ago. He was fired after stealing money. He left his family, disappeared. That boy is his son." Ethan's chest tightened. He stared at the ground, rain mixing with the tears he wouldn't let fall. "It's true," Mr. Hartman said coldly. He's the reason your mother stopped trusting anyone. He ruined us. Lila's hand dropped. Ethan whispered, I didn't know. Mr. Hartman stepped forward. Now you do. Leave my daughter alone. And just like that, the world that had started to make sense to Ethan fell apart again. He turned away, heart breaking. Goodbye, Lila. She reached for him, but he was already gone into the rain. That night, Lila locked herself in her room. She didn't cry, she didn't eat, she just whispered his name again and again like a prayer. Because deep down, she didn't believe her father. She felt Ethan's truth in the way he looked at her, not with greed, not with pity, but with understanding. And she knew she'd see him again. Lila didn't sleep that night. She sat by her window, rain tapping against the glass, Ethan's voice echoing in her mind. Goodbye, Lila. The sound of it hurt more than any wound could. Her father's words spun through her head. He's a thief's son. His father ruined us. But her heart whispered something else. He's the reason you spoke. He's the one who saw you. She couldn't shake it. She didn't want to. So the next morning she made a decision that would change everything. She waited until her father left for a meeting. Then she sneaked out through the side gate, the same gate where she and Ethan had first met. She wore a hoodie, pulled low over her face. She didn't take her phone or bodyguards, just a small backpack and a folded note that said, I need to find him. For 16 years, she had lived inside walls made of gold. Now she was stepping into a world made of struggle. The streets smelled of rain and gasoline. Cars honked, people shouted, music thumped from open windows. And for the first time, she felt alive. She spent hours asking around, showing Ethan's picture, a tiny printed photo she had secretly taken one day while he played the harmonica. Have you seen this boy? She asked again and again. Some ignored her, some shrugged. One old woman selling coffee said, looks like one of those kids who sleep under the bridge near River Street. Lila's heart raced. She ran. When she reached the bridge, the air smelled of smoke and damp clothes. There were people curled under blankets, their faces hidden. She stepped carefully, calling softly, Ethan, Ethan, are you here? No answer. She searched until her legs shook. Then she heard it. A faint sound, like music, a harmonica. Her breath caught. She followed the sound until she saw him. Sitting under the bridge, hunched over, eyes half closed, playing the same tune he had played for her the first time. He looked thinner, weaker, but he was still Ethan. Ethan, she whispered. He stopped playing instantly, his eyes darting up in disbelief. Lila! Before he could move, she ran to him and hugged him tightly. He froze, then slowly, carefully, hugged her back. Why are you here? He whispered. If your father finds out... I don't care, she said. I needed to see you. For a moment they just sat there, the city roaring above them. Then she pulled back, looking him straight in the eye. Ethan, my father said your dad stole from him. Is it true? He looked away, pain flickering across his face. I don't know. I was 6 when he left. All I remember is my mom crying and saying he didn't do it. Did you ever try to find out? He shook his head. What's the point? People only remember what they want to. But Lila wasn't convinced. She touched his arm. Then let's find out the truth. Ethan blinked. Lila, you can't just... I can, she said firmly. You helped me find my voice. Let me help you find your truth. They started that same day. Lila used her connections carefully, reaching out to one person she could trust, Mrs. Daniels, her late mother's secretary, who had known the family for years. She met them secretly in a small cafe far from the mansion. Lila Hartman, the woman said in shock. What are you doing here? Your father will... I just need to ask you something, Lila interrupted, about a man named Caleb Brown. Mrs. Daniels' expression froze. Why are you asking about him? Ethan stepped forward. Because he was my father. The woman looked between them, realization dawning in her eyes. You're... Ethan? He nodded slowly. Mrs. Daniels sighed, lowering her voice. Listen to me. Caleb wasn't a thief. He was your father's most loyal employee. He found out someone else was stealing money from the company, a partner your father trusted. But before he could prove it, he was framed. They pinned everything on him. Lila's eyes widened. Who? Mrs. Daniels hesitated. A man named Richard Hale, your father's closest friend. Ethan clenched his fists. My dad tried to stop him and got destroyed instead. Mrs. Daniels nodded. Your father knew the truth later, but by then Caleb had vanished. He felt guilty but couldn't find him. I think he's been carrying that guilt ever since. Lila's heart ached. He never told me. Because he wanted to protect you, Mrs. Daniels said softly. He thought silence would erase the past, but it never does. When they left the cafe, Ethan sat on the curb, staring at his hands. So, my dad wasn't the villain, he whispered. He was the one who tried to do right. Lila nodded. And yours isn't the monster you think he is, she added quietly. He just made mistakes too. He looked at her, eyes wet. You really believe that? She smiled faintly. I believe in you. Something in that moment shifted. Not like romance, but something purer, deeper. Two broken souls finally finding pieces of themselves they didn't know were missing. But their peace didn't last long. When Lila returned home that evening, her father was waiting in the living room, furious, pacing like a storm in a suit. Where were you? He demanded. She didn't flinch. With Ethan. He froze. You disobeyed me. She nodded. Yes. His voice rose. Do you have any idea what could have happened to you? I do, she said softly. I found out what did happen. You lied to me, Dad. He stopped. What are you talking about? About Caleb Brown, she said, eyes locked on his. He didn't steal from you, you know he didn't. His face went pale. Who told you that? It doesn't matter. You punished the wrong man, and his son suffered because of it. Her father sank into a chair, suddenly looking older, smaller. Lila, I tried to find him. I wanted to tell the truth, but by the time I did, his family was gone. Ethan was still here, she whispered. You just didn't look. Silence filled the room. Finally, Mr. Hartman looked up, tears in his eyes. I don't know how to fix this. Lila stepped closer. You can start by seeing him. Not as a mistake. Not as his father's shadow. But as the boy who gave me my voice. Her father swallowed hard. You want me to meet him? She nodded. Please. He hesitated, then slowly nodded. Tomorrow. When Lila told Ethan the next day, he couldn't believe it. Your father wants to see me? After all that? He needs to, she said. For both of you. He shook his head, nervous. What if he still hates me? Then let him see what I see, she said softly. A boy who listens. The next morning, Ethan stood outside the Golden Gate again, but this time it opened. Mr. Hartman stepped out, expression unreadable. Ethan swallowed hard. Sir? Mr. Hartman raised a hand. Come in. And as Ethan crossed that threshold, the same one that had always separated them, both of their worlds began to change forever. For the first time in his life, Ethan walked through the golden gates that had always locked him out. The same gates where guards had shoved him away, where he'd played his broken harmonica, where he'd met the girl who changed his world. Now, he was stepping inside. The mansion was bigger than he'd ever imagined. Marble floors, chandeliers that looked like stars, walls so clean they shone. It didn't feel like a home. It felt like a museum, beautiful, but cold. Mr. Hartman led him to the study. No words, just footsteps echoing down the long hallway. When they entered, he turned, motioning for Ethan to sit. Ethan stayed standing. I'm fine, sir. Mr. Hartman nodded slowly, studying him like someone trying to recognize a ghost. You look just like your father, he said at last. Ethan's chest tightened. I don't know if that's a good thing. The older man sighed. He was a good man. I didn't see it then, and I paid for it every day since. He walked to the window, staring out. When the company money went missing, I was under pressure. My wife was sick. The board was threatening to tear me apart. Caleb, your father, came to me and said he'd found the truth. But I didn't listen. I fired him before he could explain. Ethan swallowed hard. So you destroyed him because you were scared? Yes, Mr. Hartman said quietly. And when he disappeared, I realized what I'd done. But it was too late. Silence filled the room. The only sound was the ticking of the clock. Then Ethan said softly, "He died 5 years ago, alone. We never found his grave." Mr. Hartman turned sharply. "What?" "My mum told me before she passed. He got sick. Never made it back." Ethan looked down. "She always said he was innocent." Mr. Hartman's eyes glistened. "He was." He walked closer, his voice breaking. "Ethan, I can't undo what I did. But if I could trade every dollar I own to fix it, I would." Ethan looked up, and for the first time he saw not a powerful billionaire, but a broken man who'd lost just as much as he had. The door creaked open. Lila stood there, her eyes full of hope and fear. "Dad?" she asked softly. Mr. Hartman turned, forcing a smile. "It's okay, sweetheart. We're talking." She walked to Ethan's side, her small hand brushing his. And just like that, all the pain, the lies, the distance between their worlds vanished for a moment. Mr. Hartman took a deep breath. "Ethan, I want to make things right. Your father's name should be cleared. The truth should be told." Ethan's voice shook. "How?" "I still have the old files, the transaction records. If what Mrs. Daniels said about Richard Hale is true, we can prove it." Lila's eyes lit up. "Then let's do it." But before Mr. Hartman could reply, his phone rang. He looked down, and his face went pale. "It's him," he whispered. "Who?" Ethan asked. "Richard Hale." That name hung in the air like poison. Mr. Hartman answered. "Richard?" A cold voice crackled through the speaker. "Thomas, we need to talk, now." Mr. Hartman's eyes narrowed. "About what?" "The past," Hale said. "It's coming back. I suggest we handle it quietly before it ruins us both." Mr. Hartman glanced at Ethan. "You already ruined me once." A pause, then Hale chuckled. "Ah, so you found the boy." Ethan froze. "He knows?" "Let me make something clear," Hale continued, his voice darkening. "If you open your mouth about what happened years ago, you'll regret it. I have copies of everything. Bank files, reports. Don't forget, I still own half your company." Mr. Hartman clenched his jaw. "You won't threaten me again." Hale's tone turned icy. "Then watch what happens next." The line went dead. Ethan stepped forward. "We have to expose him." Mr. Hartman shook his head. "He's dangerous. If he still has those files, he could destroy everything." Lila spoke up firmly. "He already destroyed enough lives. It's time he paid for it." Her father looked at her, the daughter who once couldn't speak, now standing strong, unafraid. He nodded slowly. "You're right." The next few days became a blur of secrecy. Ethan, Lila, and Mr. Hartman worked together, going through old records, hidden drives, and dusty boxes filled with documents. At night, Ethan stayed in the guest house. He could barely believe it, sleeping under a roof with food, light, and safety for the first time in years. But he wasn't comfortable yet. Part of him still felt like an outsider in a world not meant for him. Lila didn't care. She'd bring him breakfast every morning and sit with him in the garden, her laughter soft but real. Sometimes she'd ask him to play his harmonica again, and when he did, her father would pause his work just to listen. It was strange. Music had once connected two broken teens. Now it was healing a family. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Ethan found an old box marked 2010 Confidential. Inside were papers, signed checks, and one USB drive. He ran to Mr. Hartman's study. "Sir, look at this." They opened the drive. On it were emails between Richard Hale and a shell company detailing the stolen funds, every transaction, every lie. Mr. Hartman's hands shook. It's all here, Lila gasped. This clears your name, Ethan, your father's name. But before they could celebrate, a loud crash came from outside. The front door burst open. Guards shouted. And standing there, dressed in black with 2 men behind him, was Richard Hale. He smirked. I warned you, Thomas, but you never listen. Mr. Hartman stepped forward. It's over, Richard. We have proof. Hale chuckled darkly. You really think anyone will believe the word of a beggar boy and your mute daughter? She's not mute anymore, Ethan said sharply. Lila took a step forward, her voice strong and steady. And I'm not afraid of you. For a split second, Hale's smirk faltered. Give me the drive, he snapped. Mr. Hartman shook his head. No. Hale's men moved closer. One reached for Ethan, but the boy stood his ground. You're not touching him. Mr. Hartman hit the alarm button under his desk. Sirens blared through the house. Hale cursed, grabbed the box and ran, but Ethan lunged forward, tackling him to the ground. The box flew across the floor, papers scattering everywhere. Lila grabbed the USB drive before it hit the ground. Security stormed in seconds later, dragging Hale away as he shouted threats. Ethan stood, breathing hard, blood on his lip, but smiling. It's over, he said quietly. The police arrived soon after. The evidence on the drive proved everything. Hale was arrested for fraud, embezzlement and blackmail. News spread fast. The same reporters who once told the story of the silent billionaire's daughter now told another one, about the poor homeless boy who cleared his father's name and saved the company that once cast him out. That night the mansion was quiet again, but it wasn't cold anymore. Mr. Hartman stood with Ethan in the garden. I don't have the right to ask for your forgiveness, he said softly, but I hope one day you'll find it in your heart. Ethan smiled faintly. You already gave me something better, sir. A chance. Mr. Hartman nodded, voice thick. Your father would be proud. Lila walked up beside them, holding the harmonica in her hand. She looked at Ethan and said, You taught me to speak, Ethan. Now let's make sure the world never forgets your voice. He smiled, eyes shining. Then let's make it loud. Months passed. The chaos was over, but the story was just beginning. Richard Hale was behind bars. The Hartman name, once dragged through dirt, was shining again. And Ethan, the boy who once slept under bridges, now walked the hallways of the mansion as if he'd always belonged there. But even with all that peace, Ethan didn't forget where he came from. He still visited the homeless shelter every weekend, giving out food, fixing broken guitars, and teaching kids how to make music out of anything. Bottles, tins, strings, anything that could make a sound. Every time he played, the kids would shout, Play the magic song, Ethan, the one that made the girl talk. And he would smile, bring his harmonica to his lips, and play Lila's song. Soft, healing, and full of hope. One afternoon, a famous TV host came to the mansion for an interview. She wanted to tell the world about the silent billionaire's daughter who spoke through music. Lila sat nervously beside Ethan, cameras rolling, lights flashing. She glanced at him and he nodded with that calm, confident smile that always made her brave. The host leaned forward. Lila, when you finally spoke for the first time, what were your exact words? Lila smiled shyly. I said, Don't go. The audience gasped softly. She continued, Because when I first met Ethan, he was just a boy on the street. Everyone saw him as nothing. But when he played his harmonica, I saw light. I felt something I'd never felt before, at peace. His music spoke when words couldn't. Ethan looked down, a bit embarrassed. The host turned to him. And you, Ethan, how does it feel knowing your music gave her a voice? He paused for a long time before answering. It feels like life gave me back what it took. I lost my father, my home, and my place in the world, but somehow music gave me a new one. I didn't fix Lila. She fixed me. Lila's eyes filled with tears. She took his hand. No, Ethan, we fixed each other. The host smiled warmly. That's beautiful. What's next for you both? Lila turned to the camera, her voice strong and clear. We're starting a music foundation, the Voice Within project. It's for kids who can't afford instruments, speech therapy, or even hope. We'll teach them to use sound, art, and love to heal." The audience broke into applause. A year later, the Voice Within Foundation opened in downtown Los Angeles, right where Ethan used to sleep under bridges. It wasn't fancy, just bright murals, musical instruments, and kids' laughter echoing through the halls. Ethan became the head instructor. Lila handled speeches, media, and performances. Every morning they'd walk into that little building and see the walls painted with the words, "Your voice is more than sound, it's your soul." And under it, Ethan had added one more line in chalk. "Even silence can speak if love listens." One summer night, the foundation held its first charity concert. Hundreds came, reporters, artists, and even Mr. Hartman sitting proudly in the front row. Lila walked onto the stage in a simple white dress, the same harmonica hanging around her neck. "Before we perform," she said, "I want you to meet the person who taught me what real courage sounds like." Ethan stepped out to roaring applause. He wasn't in rags anymore, but he still wore the same old leather wristband his father had given him, the only thing he'd kept from his past. He looked around the stage, then at the audience. "Before I play," he said softly, "I want to tell you something my dad once told me." He took a deep breath. He said, "Son, music isn't about talent, it's about truth. When your heart hurts, let it sing. When you're lost, let it hum. Someone, somewhere, will hear you." He raised his harmonica and played. The sound filled the hall, tender, deep, and full of stories. Behind him, Lila's voice joined in, pure, trembling, but strong. Together they performed The Voice Within. The song moved everyone to tears, a melody born on the streets, now healing hearts in a hall full of light. When the lights went down, Mr. Hartman found Ethan backstage. He hugged him, a real fatherly hug, the kind Ethan had never known. "Your father would be proud," he whispered. Ethan smiled. "You already said that, sir." Mr. Hartman chuckled. "Then let me add something new. I'm proud too." Ethan blinked back tears. "Thank you, Dad." The word hung in the air, simple, powerful, and enough to bring Mr. Hartman to tears. The final lesson. Months later, a journalist asked Lila to summarize their story in one sentence for a magazine cover. She smiled and said, "A boy with nothing gave me everything, a voice, hope, and courage." Then she paused. "But the truth is, we both learned that money can buy a mansion but not music. It can buy comfort but not peace. The richest people are those who give others their voice." In a world full of noise, real wealth isn't measured in dollars or diamonds. It's measured in hearts healed, souls lifted, and voices found. Ethan taught a billionaire's daughter to speak, not with her mouth, but with her heart. And in return, she taught him that even a boy from the streets could be a light in someone's silence. Because sometimes miracles don't come from heaven, they come from the broken who still choose to love. True wealth isn't about money or power. It's about using what you have to lift another soul. Ethan had nothing but music, yet it changed lives. Lila had everything but a voice until she learned that love itself speaks louder than words. Dear friends, what you just saw is only one part of the bigger picture. In the next video, I'll reveal the twist no one saw coming, so make sure you're here when it drops. I would love to know what you would have done in this situation. Drop your thoughts below. I'll be reading every single comment. Thank you so much for watching. I love you so much, and don't forget to give this video a like. Hit the subscribe button and share with someone who needs to hear it.